keeping us on focus, on target, on whatever the heck it is. Okay.
And some of the things that are on there, if you want to know some of the beginning things with the radio, I can give you a little info on that. You might make some notes. But you can keep that.
Thank you.
And then if you can
How
read...
do you say this? May I please interrupt?
Yeah.
Dick Stabile, is it?
Yeah.
Stabile. The I is an E sound.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dick was he was conductor for the Dean Martin Jerry Lewis show. And
little what?
Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. He was their conductor.
Yeah, but I thought you said a little show or a little shy.
No, I said the Dean Martin Jerry Lewis show. The television show.
Yeah. I thought you said something else.
No. And then I worked with him. We had a little sort of a partnership on some things. So we did that, and then also I toured with him. He was conducting for Bing Crosby's Boys, for the Crosby brothers. And I toured with him with that show.
Did you happen to get up early enough to watch CBS Sunday Morning this week?
I don't know.
It's anyway, it's on 7 to 9:30 on Sunday morning on CBS, and this week they had a feature of. They always have a celebrity musician feature. This week it was Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga, and it was very interesting. I mean, usually they really take a serious, respectful bent to it, and usually you're used to seeing her half dressed in shock mode, and she was great.
Yeah.
She certainly could hold her own in terms of
Oh, she's pretty bright. Yeah, she's a good businesswoman.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, I added his name because we hadn't typed it in, but I worked with Tony Bennett. So his name is, there's some scribbles of names that
I see.
I had forgot to mark on there when we originally did this. So they were all good.
Now these parties in the 5th paragraph, the larger paragraph, these were down in LA, California area.
Which one does it say? Most of them probably would be. What?
Well, if I would read the first paragraph, it says, following the road, settle down to freelancing in Los Angeles. Duh.
Yeah, well, I may have a copy of that and I can refer to it here. Oh, like where it says Rippling River? No.
No, it's the 5th paragraph down from the top, the wide one, where it says, following the road, settle down to freelancing in Los Angeles. Okay, never mind. I answered my own question, but thanks.
That's all right. Ask away. Oh, here it is.
Hasn't Norman retired?
He's retired permanently.
Yeah.
We're having a memorial service for him Friday, the 5th.
Did he pass?
Oh yeah, sure. He died about a month and a half.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're having a memorial for him over at Wyden Kennedy on the 5th.
Well, my partner Lauren, who passed, he would always keep me apprised
Yeah.
of all that. So.
Oh yeah, here it is.
Don't
Following the
blame
road.
me.
Yeah, following the road, where it says so all that stuff there, where all the people's names are, that was pretty much all down there. I mean, I was still going down there, so even when I lived here, I was going down there and doing those things. For about at least the first 12 years of living up here.
Okay.
Oh, 20 years on this one. Okay. So what you can like glance through that and then ask me questions about specific things in there that need explanation.
Can your lovely daughter get the computer going and dial up that page? I forgot to bring my Jacine and all of the reeds. Which one did
Not
you?
oboe.
Okay, that's cool.
Not the double reeds. I play all the single reeds, and I play and flute, and you name it, ocarina, tonettes, a lot of stuff I've worked on.
I love the oboe.
Grade,
I
That-
want the.
of course,
I
it
want,
only shows first page on this. The article, it shows, the head, the main
does
page.
it say? Does it say going forward till you get to the rest of it?
Hi, Corky.
Because the issue is multiple pages. I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Comedic situation, which I have,
Okay.
and but that's just no big deal.
Now,
Sax, clarinet, and flute.
this your bio here said you got started when you were but a lad of 4.
Right.
Was your family
No, my
musical? Your parents?
mother played piano, but my father, no, they weren't really professional musicians. My mother played piano. She still does. She did, and Lee plays piano. But my father for a short time, was a booking agent in New York, called the Orchestra Service Bureau on 42nd. He used to book the big bands, Fletcher Henderson, the big name bands in the 30s. He was not a musician at all. He just did that, which had nothing to do with my being in the business. My grandmother, a real interesting educational story of how I got started in the music business. My grandmother knew a lady who worked at a theater that had a small radio station upstairs called WLTH. And it was a 15-minute show. I think it was Friday afternoons, as I recall. And it was sponsored by a company, which I still remember, Walker Gordon Milk, which was an extra nutritious milk and ice cream product. And my grandmother brought me there because she says, my grandchild Dickie can sing, audition him for the show. They did, and they put me on the show. And I did it for a while, a 15-minute every Friday. I sang about 3 songs, sponsored by, and my mother would get paid, and I would get a cup of ice cream, which was, immediately I said, I'm going to get in the music business. You get ice cream, how can you not say no? I stayed on that for a while, and then somebody asked me to audition for a show called Rainbow House on WOR Mutual, which was the big station. And that was called Rainbow House. I think that's on the thing I gave you. And I stayed on that until I was about 12 years old. And that was every Sunday. And that was a 1-hour children's hour show. And there were a lot of people came out of that show. People who on it with us. Beverly Sills was one of the kids on it. Hal Cooper, who was a director, did all the Maud series. I did some of the Mauds for him too, some music for them. He also directed Jeannie, most of those shows. And he's around now. He's retired now. But he was the director for years of all those. Great comedy director. And we had a lot of people on the show that came up and did very impressive things. And over the years, I've worked with a lot of them in Los Angeles. And that's the beginning. And I stayed on that. Then I continued to do some singing. During the war, the show sent me on to sing at block parties to raise money in like in 1942 to raise war bond money. Then I went on to, I don't know if that's in there too, the High School of Music and Art. Went there. Is it mentioned? Yeah, High School of Music and Art. And that was a specialized school for musicians and artists who auditioned for it. From there I went on to the Manhattan School of Music. I was a voice major there, voice and choral music. Also worked with I was still playing, I was in voice and choral, but I was still an instrumentalist. I was still playing a lot of saxophone and flute and all that with dance bands. Then we went to the Catskills, we did the Borscht Circuit in the Catskills. I went to Tanglewood Had a scholarship to Tanglewood where I met my wife. You know, you're familiar with Tanglewood then?
Yeah.
The Berkshire Music Festival. Studied there. What else? That was basically the study, and then I stayed in New York. Short time after that, the United States government needed another piccolo player, so they took me into the Air Force.
I just met a young man who was 20 years in the Navy playing the steel drums.
I'm glad I wasn't for 20 years. But anyway, I went into the Air Force. I was there for 3 years. I'm sure it shortened the war. My piccolo playing.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm absolutely sure.
Oh, you played out the enemy immediately surrendered.
2 C's? Piccolo, 2 C's?
Yeah.
And 1 L.
And so I did that. When I got out of the service, I stayed in Phoenix and I did a lot there. I played with the Phoenix Symphony, played flute and pick with them. Had a television show for the Air Force, had one for Arizona Highways magazine, which I wrote the music for, and also conducted a choral ensemble for them. And then I moved out, and I worked at a nightclub at the same time after the service, and then I went out and, let's see what else, we should throw some names in. While I was there, I was asked to play with Ferdy Graffet. He wrote a big piece about Arizona called The Mask of the Yellow Moon. And they put together a big symphony orchestra and called me to play pick on it. So I did just piccolo on that. No flute on that for me. And then I ended up, finally after a while, there was no more for me to do in Phoenix. It was getting kind of boring, so we went to LA and there was a lot of opportunity there. That's when I started. As it mentions in there, went on the road for a number of years with my partner, played mostly in Nevada. We did at least 20 weeks a year for Bill Harrah, for Harrah's Club. Did a lot of shows there. I don't know if you noticed the picture in the restroom when you went up there of Louis Armstrong on the wall with his pants down,
How
sitting
could
on
you
the
miss
can.
that?
You couldn't. He gave one of those to each of us, to all of us that knew him. We used to hang out with him a lot up there because we were on the same bill. And he would invite the musicians over, and his wife would cook and barbecue and all that. And he gave that was it was really a promo on his part because he owned stock in Rexall, and Rexall was producing a product called Swiss Chris, a laxative.
I get it.
And he would give all of us one of those, and he would say, Satchmo's slogan, leave it all behind you. And he gave all of us a picture.
I can remember seeing an interview a while back ago on that subject.
On Swiss Chris? Yeah, that's the original's up there, all that paperwork. The package of Swiss Chris he signed to me, wrote his name on it and wrote it to me. He gave us each a little package, and all the rest of it is stuff that he dictated to Lucille about how to use it. A whole story about, how to take it with orange juice and blast right away. He used to say that. And his favorite foods are on there. One was red beans and rice, recipe for that he gave us, and also Mrs. Myron Cohn's matzo ball soup was his other favorite food. But I mean, this has nothing to do with my itinerary.
No.
It's just funny stuff, because you saw that picture. And other than, so I stayed on, we did about 4 years or 5 years on the road with Marcy Miller, the gal whose picture you see there. Marcy had just come off Ray Anthony's band. And an agent put us together, and we went on the road for about 4 or 5 years. And then I came back and settled on and doing the general outside work in Los Angeles, and kept doing it until I moved up there. In fact, after I moved there, I was still doing it. And that's basically it. Up here, locally, I made some notes as to things doing locally. When I first came up, someone recommended me, and Norman had known my name from some mutual friends. So I began to play the jazz tenor chair with Norm Layden with the symphony. So I did all the concerts for about 25 years, as long as he was still conductor. While we were here, I did a lot of shows. I did a lot of charity things. We did a big event for SIDS, raising money for SIDS, and we brought up Peter Marshall and Pat Boone, and we brought up a whole bunch of celebrities and did that show. We did it out at the Rippling River.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ralph Edwards came up and we did things for Parkinson's, because I used to do those with him in Los Angeles. And then locally I started playing also with Stumptown Jazz, you know those guys.
Oh yeah.
With Pat O'Neill and Gary and that bunch. I stayed with them for a few years, did all the festivals. Because they asked me to sit in one night and said, "Oh, you know all the Dixieland," and I really don't. But the chords are rather obvious if you've been doing this all your life. So I had fun doing it with Stumptown, and then while I was up here I also did an album, which we never released, with Nichelle Nichols. I used my big band on that. She came up to do a show. Nichelle is Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
And Nichelle's a very good jazz singer.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a live recording of her with my big band on the show, but the recording wasn't done properly. It was theater recording.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't done to really record properly to do with mics for everybody. It was just done like a regular theater. So I took it down to her house after we tweaked it for about 2 weeks up here with the recording people, and we really didn't like it. I brought it down there, and none of us were crazy about it, so it's still dumped. I still got the tape somewhere. What else? That was her. I play now with a little group. I do a lot of things with them, with a group called Jazz 2+1.
Oh, I know them.
You know, Steve Bowden.
Mm-hmm.
And our new
I've known him for a long time.
Yeah, Steve's been around here a long time. So, I'll show you a picture of this.
I'll have to take a moment before I go and picture snoop.
This is we just did this.
Oh, the shoes! Yes, the shoes.
So that's me.
That reminds me of the Power Pet Band. I'm arranging the bands to play out in the plaza before the next PSU football game on the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And the Power Pet Band already plays inside. They work for PSU. So I'm doing the bands that play as the people are going
Good.
in. I used to do a similar thing at the opera, but that was many, many moons ago. But the
So
socks...
that thing's been going pretty good.
Uh-huh.
The album's been selling pretty well.
What's your audience?
Huh?
What's your audience for this?
Well, Steve has all these retirement communities.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a ton of those in Oaks Park and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
We did Mary's Woods the other night,
Mm-hmm.
just all over the place. But he does a lot. He gets a few a week. And to play with that, and I'm playing primarily soprano and clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote all the instrumental stuff that's on it. All the intros and backgrounds for the horn, for his singing and all that, because they didn't do any of that before.
Mm-hmm.
It was just fake stuff. So it's not bad. So that's that one. That would be Take Care of Local.
You're not going to talk about all the parties at Dean Martin's house and Frank Sinatra's
Well,
house
that was Los Angeles.
and Danny Kaye's house and
Well, it was part,
and all these.
I always admired Danny Kaye because
part of my
Yeah.
work down there was, I was working with these people doing their shows, but because I also could do dance stuff and that kind of thing, where a lot of the guys on the shows didn't. They were strictly studio players, but I could do both. So with a lot of those people, I used to play parties in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So Sylvia Fine had me play parties at she and Danny Kaye's house. Whenever they had a dinner party, I would play. And at her house, at Dean Martin's house, Dave Wolper. We did the rap for when he did, what was the thing, what was it, the black thing that Jerry wrote the music for? You know, the history, Roots.
Oh, Roots.
Oh, Roots.
If they did Roots, we did the rap on that.
Hey, Dad, turn your chair a little this way. I can't see your face.
So we used to do parties, and a lot of the celebrity parties, we used to do a lot of things for Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion. Events up there, both events that he would rent it for, and also events for the magazine, for the publishers and the distributors of his magazines. So we would do events for him up there. But, you know, down there, that was primarily what we were doing.
We did all the studios. You did the Home Savings Big Band with Dorothy.
For a while, Home Savings sponsored us for many years. And we were it was Dick Saunders and the Home Savings Orchestra. And they bought my entire big library, my 18-piece band library, is all stamped Home Savings. They bought it all for me.
Cool.
And all my music stands and all my equipment. They bought it all, and George Fenneman was our spokesman, and George used to do the announcing for us on all these shows. And these would be at major places, Pasadena Civic, and you know the big locations, Greek Theater, places like that.
And Dorothy Lamour.
Well, they were all on it. I mean, the pictures are all up there with their little notes, all those pictures on the wall. Dottie Lamour and the Mills Brothers, and they were all part of the people that would work with us.
Cool. Very cool.
And then I guess I don't know, nothing to put in there, but there's a picture up there of my band when I was 17, and Hal Linden was one of my...
Really?
There's Hal's picture when he was here a couple of years ago, right up there, right down below. See the two together? He's looking out between...
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, that's his piano player and myself.
Ah,
It was
cool.
over the house. So Hal and I were in that music and art school together. And he came up, he worked with us with the symphony, and that there's a little picture of me in a white coat, and Hal is the third saxophone on the end. That little picture, and then there's Where magazine from Los Angeles with my picture on the cover. My dance band, that was at the Biltmore, the Empire Room in the Biltmore Hotel.
Gene, what's the rest of his name? With the white hair. Gene.
Yeah, Stevens.
Can't remember.
Why do I always drink a blank because I didn't really like him.
Really?
You mean the lower one with the white
the
hair?
white hair, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the story. When we went, I know.
Yeah.
I'm blanking out his name that I went and he did a silly thing at his house.
Isn't it? It's his signature's on the bottom.
Gene Burke.
No, can you see his signature's on the
I'll
bottom?
have to look and see.
Take a quick look. Remind me. I keep forgetting his name for a reason.
Well, you generally don't. Today you did. You're usually the one barking it out, and I'm the one that forgets his name.
He was Paladin. It was his big guy.
Gene Barry.
Gene Barry.
Gene Barry.
Yeah.
That was a funny story, Gene Barry.
Oh, he asked me to play his daughter's wedding.
Did ya? Did you?
Huh?
Did you?
Oh, yeah. The only reason I have is he sent me the picture and all, and he loved this, what we did, but, and this is not for necessarily a publication or anything,
Yeah.
but what was funny about it is the only theatrical person that was there other than producers and directors, because he was more of a businessman,
Beautiful.
the only guest was Milton Berle.
Huh.
He invited Milton.
Really?
And Milton got up and started to joke around and kibitz around with people, and nobody was laughing.
Oh my
not
God,
one laugh.
That must have just pierced him in the heart.
No laughing, and we knew why. The band knew why, but we didn't want to say anything. And Gene knew why. And he kept quiet. And he just kept spouting off about, what kind of an audience is this? You know, what is this, a portrait? Is this a painting? Nobody's laughing. What Gene had failed to tell him was that the majority of guests had come over with the bride's family from Italy. He married an Italian dress designer. She married. And most of the people that came to the, except for a handful, were all from Italy. Then none of them spoke English. So nobody knew what Milton was talking about. They just kept staring at him. Little kids, they were all looking at him, what is this man? He's jumping around all over, what is he doing? Finally, Gene walked up and whispered in his ear. And then he sat
Oh
down.
my gosh.
But he was a big egotist. Should
Yeah,
I tell
I
him your
know.
story, Mel?
I know.
Anything you want.
The story with Melody is that we went to his house to talk about what we were going to do in the music. And Melody says to him, she says, you look exactly like a friend of mine. And he stopped. He was taken back. He says, you mean that you have a friend that looks like me? He wasn't about to say he looks like someone else. He says, you have a friend that looks like me. And we were very egotistical. So I thought, oh, who needs this?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that.
But he's gone now.
I know.
Fenneman was the nice guy. He was very nice to work with.
Who was?
George Fenneman
Oh, yeah.
from Groucho. He's standing with me right there in the middle. And Mel Torme is a really nice man.
So you must know the drummer. His
Who?
drummer. You must know his drummer.
Oh, Donnie?
Donnie,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I know Donnie.
I know his mother.
Ah.
I met her once. These pictures of, these two.
Well, that's me on the end.
But this
And
is,
that's Edie Gourmet.
I know, that's just a stunning picture of her.
Yeah, that was her first recording I did.
Beautiful picture.
I did her first recording. It was an audition for Tex Beneke in those days, and that was about 19, I would say 48,
And who
49.
Who is this? It reminds me of somebody. I don't know. It reminds me of Alistair Cook or the.
No,
English
with the
guy.
bald head?
Yeah.
So let me see if it, that's Sammy the drummer.
Okay.
And if you ever watched the old Jack Benny radio shows, Sammy the drummer was the one he used to kid about all the time, and he used to say that he's got a jug stashed in his drum. He also invented a thing called Sammy's boom bass. And he was always featured on the show as not just in the orchestra, but as a comic. Because he was a very funny man. And up there, Pat Buttram up there with the hat, putting a hat on me. The piano player was Sammy Fain. Sammy wrote Secret Love and a million other great tunes. In fact, there's a piece of his right on my music stand that I'm going to be playing called Fox and Hounds that I recorded for him.
Time.
You need the time. It's 25 after 3.
Oh, good. We're doing fine.
So yeah, as soon as you get, any further questions, I'll give you some things about some of the people I used to listen to, but otherwise, we're covered. Martin Sheen over there.
I must write that down before
The Einstein.
I go out. I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots.
Yep. Isn't that
It's
great?
true.
Beautiful.
I have that up in my room too.
Oh,
I can make that copy for you.
would you?
Yeah, I have a
Oh.
copy in my room that I can take.
I have a copy on my signature, or a little blurb on my signature on my email that says, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. Walt Disney.
Oh, wasn't that Alice in Wonderland or something? Was that
No,
Disney?
that's a quote from Walt Disney.
Ah,
It's on my signature. On
Walt
my
Disney
email.
said that. That's a quote. In fact, I just saw that recently.
ah.
All right, let's see.
Okay,
Anything
so
else
where
on
are we
here?
at here?
right.
Let's see. Okay,
I'm looking here.
what's your most satisfying experience?
Most satisfying experience.
Favorite recording and
I don't have a favorite. I have no favorite recordings. I listen to a million things and I enjoy them all. I don't have a favorite which wow, I really love that. I like everything I listen to. Let's see, the people that I would listen to when I was growing up, when I was a kid, and this was not recordings, I'd listen to the recordings too, but we used to sneak down to 52nd Street, a bunch of us who were all music students, And we were too young to be allowed into the clubs on 52nd Street, like the Deuces and all those places. So, but we used to go in there because in there we could sit and listen to Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, Dexter Gordon, Johnny Hodges,
Just a minute. Please.
Jess Stacy.
Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Johnny what? Hawkins? Johnny Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, Johnny...
Well, Johnny Hodges was the alto player with Ellington.
Well, there's one more I missed.
Well, we had Dexter Gordon.
Oh, Dexter, of course.
Harry Carney was the one on baritone. But I mean, they were... It's not that these were great influences on me. I guess they would be because they're the ones I was listening to. These were the well-known jazz players of the day.
Harry Carney?
Harry Carney, yeah.
Okay.
He played baritone saxophone with Ellington. He was the featured... With Basie, Count Basie.
Basie.
And then, of course, naturally, if you play clarinet, you listen to Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw. I did do a few things with Red Nichols and his Five Pennies. We worked opposite each other for Bill Harrah in the Reno Club. And again, it's not, it's too much stuff to write in, but we always laugh because Joe, I don't know if you knew the name Joe Rushton. Joe Rushton was the famous bass saxophone player that worked with Red Nichols and the Five Pennies. And one time, one of the guys, I forgot who it was, the clarinet player, someone said, "Why don't you guys," and I was playing, I had my flute there. He says, "You have a piccolo with you?" I said, "Yeah, I played piccolo." He says, "Let's play some jazz with Joe Rushton on bass saxophone and you on piccolo playing fours." So we did some blues with Red Nichols, playing, I mean, it's silly, piccolo and bass saxophone. It's 1,000 miles apart. But anyway, it was just a fun experience. Looked at memorable jobs of things like that would be primarily the roasts. I used to do all the roasts at the Friars Club. And these were not the roasts that went on television for audience.
Probably couldn't.
They were stag. They were all stag. Milton Berle was the president. And he always emceed. And some of the things that were said at those I won't mention. And but those were really fun to do. And I have recordings that I did under my music stand for all those events, roasting all these different people. So those were a lot of fun. Some of the stuff I mentioned that I've done up here, we talk about jazz too and so on. I also do a lot of stuff with an accordion player where we play just flute and accordion. And we play every Bastille Day at the Saint-Honoré Boulangerie.
That's a nice little place.
Yeah,
That's
and we
my
open La
neighborhood.
Provence.
That's my neighborhood that I grew up in.
The one over there.
On Division. My church is on 33rd and Woodward.
Yeah, well, he's got 3 of them now.
What's
He's
the
got
other
one-
one? You said, what's the second one you played after Santa
La
Honoré?
Provence. It's another French
Oh
restaurant.
yeah, just up the street. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do that every Bastille Day. Play all French music.
How do you divide yourself up in threes? You said there's 3 of them.
No, he's got, Dominique
Ah.
Boulangerie has 3. He has one on, I think it's Savior, downtown, off 23rd or 24th. And then he has one right here
Oh,
in Lake Oswego. I play at the Oswego one.
Okay.
And then he has one on the other side of town, which he opened not too long ago.
Do you know Eric John Kaiser?
No.
He grew up born and raised in a suburb of Paris, and he plays guitar, and he sings in French, and he's just fabulous.
Good.
Very charming young man.
Mm-hmm.
He even has a rock band where he sings in French.
And then, let me see, anything else on here? When I first came up here, the first 2 people I played with that I used on piano, which I thought was 2 of the best piano players around here, in fact as good as half the people I've used in LA, was Herbie Hall,
Yeah.
who you knew,
Uh-huh.
and Eddie Weed.
Oh yeah. Tomorrow, Bob. Oh gosh. Riddle is going to do a feature on his cable show honoring Eddie Weed.
Were they really? Oh, great. He was wonderful. In fact, I'll tell you a funny little incident story. I don't know if it works in here. But when I first got up here, the first concert I did with the symphony, after the concert, the guy said, you know what, why don't you come with us? We're going over to Chinatown. He says, we're going to go up to some Chinese restaurant. He says, a real good piano player. So we walked into this club upstairs somewhere. And the piano player looked sort of familiar to me, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know if he was Colonel Sanders or who.
Yeah,
But he looked familiar. It was Eddie. But Eddie walked up and he said, as he used his way of talking, he says, I know you. Dick. I said, yeah. And it turned out, he says, you forget me? We worked together in Las Vegas. We were on the same bill together. He was conducting for the Modernaires,
really?
and I had my quintet,
Wow.
the Dixon Marching Miller Quintet. And that's where we knew each other from, and we remembered that. I said, God, now it all came back. So it was really a weird coincidence.
Were great.
Eddie Weed's a wonderful piano player.
Yeah.
And Herbie Hall, too. Herbie was marvelous. Knew a million tunes and played just great. So it's really sad to see him go. Because after Eddie, Eddie was usually very busy because he was always working nightclubs or little clubs all over. So a lot of times I couldn't use Eddie, and I started using Herb. And it was a joy. Either one of those on the job was just a pleasure to work with. And they're still, I don't think there's still anybody that can do what they did. They're good piano players. I use Tony Pacini with my regular jazz quintet, and I like him, and Dan Gaynor and a couple of those people. They're wonderful players, but the experience of Eddie Weed and Herb, I mean, they felt like myself. I don't think there's anybody can call a tune of that period of any kind that I don't know, that I can't play. And that was the way it was with Herb and with Eddie. Anything that we wanted to call, they knew it. And most of the players up here now, well, you call an old standard tune, well, I don't think I know that. I mean, if you give them the music, they'll play it, and they'll do great. Like Tony is very good, wonderful player. But they just had it right at their fingertips. They knew all this. And I guess it's an age factor, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because they grew up playing those tunes, like I did.
Yeah, and there must be a difference of 50 years.
Yeah. So it was a joy, it was a joy to find somebody up here that knew all that. Where I found that in Los Angeles, even a guy 25 years old knows all those tunes. Because he's been thrown into the pit of the kind of work in LA, and if you don't know that, you might as well fold your piano up and go home.
Yeah.
So they learn that right away, but most of the younger players up here don't have to do that. They want to play like Jimmy Mack kind of jazz, play there, which is great, and it's interesting, and it's real talent. But it's not what I did, so it's really not my cup of tea.
So, back to...
Any more questions?
Well, how much are you working right now?
A lot. I mean, for not making my living at it, and just doing it for fun, I would say a lot. With the guys, I'm going to say maybe 7 or 8 times a month. At least with the jazz too. Plus my own things, the other things that come up, people's birthday parties. I just did a Pets on Parade with my little trio, a dog show, and it's somebody I knew, so they hired us. Yeah. I also book all the music for the farmers market here in Lake Oswego.
Okay.
And that's I'm a non-commissioned agent, so I do it. It's my volunteer job. When they opened the park. When they opened Millennium Park, I did that first. I brought my big band in, my 18-piece, with a singer named Cheryl Morris, who was from Harry James' band. We knew her from L.A. She lives up here. I don't know if you've run into her.
No.
She's living up here now. I don't know if she's singing much anymore. But Cheryl was the singer. And we had the big band. And we opened Millennium Park, and then we also had, who was the other group we had? I think the Kingsmen. We had them on it. And then we had, who was the radio disc jockey that has a rock band, the good one? He still works around radio up here.
You got me.
I forgot his name. I thought you would know him.
I really don't pay attention to pop music much or DJs much. Makes me tired trying to
everyone seemed to know him up there, and his band was like one of the busy of that kind of a band. They would cover cover band, and they would do
Mm-hmm.
a little everything, Motown, rock, all, not a kid band at all. And quite good arrangements. They all sang and all.
Was it Kevin Venables,
No,
Northwest?
I'd recognize the name if you said it.
You call him Vegetables. We call him Vegetables.
No, I don't know. I forgot his
It's
name.
quite a business. He has quite a few people working for him.
But yeah. But anyway, that's the stuff I do. And I play with the Festival Symphony with Laios and the summer concerts and all kinds of ensemble things. I'm a German next week playing an Oktoberfest. And again, they call me because I know all this stuff. And so whatever the venue calls for, I can usually do it if it's pop, swing, or
Or international.
or international. I know most of that stuff, and I know like I worked with Ray Charles, and so I could play Motown like him. I could play the kind of blues choruses on his tunes that he would expect. So I get calls like that, and that's it. But I don't do any of the clubs.
No, I don't go. I have a mobility problem, so I don't.
Yeah, well, I did
I
it
don't
because
go
I
out.
just feel it's insulting what they do up here, which they do, and I know the union in LA is fighting it just like up here because it's going on in LA now because work is down. And unless you're going to be playing with somebody so outstanding because you really need to do it, so you go in and do it, and it's one of those things where how many people come into the club, and you get that's the money the band is paid.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sitting down like we used to, and they say, well, scale is X number of dollars a week
Mm-hmm.
for this musician, and that's what you pay them. There's no question about that. So when I worked clubs, that's the way it was, and I don't like the idea that the owner wants you to come in free, or in some cases, the band pays a fee to use the club to play, so you can invite people in to spend money. That's outrageous.
Ugh. Is you is or is you ain't my baby.
Well, Steve, has he contacted? Do you book him or anything?
Who?
Steve Bowden? Would that go?
Those are not the kind of calls I get.
Yeah, he's quite busy.
And that's great.
Yeah,
More
he
power
gets